Hello everyone. Hi, we are back from NASCOM with another exciting topic. My name is Vibhor Bansal and we have Yogesh today with us. Today we are going to talk about the product management career path. The crux of the session is how a non-product person can explore opportunities in a product management career. And today we have with us Yogesh to talk about this. Before we start, just one small announcement that please do leave your feedback with us once the webinar gets over. You will see a feedback screen as soon as we close the webinar. So with not taking much of a time, uh, just to as I just told you, today we're going to talk about how a non-product person or how non-product professionals can pursue a product management career, and what are the different ways that they can pursue that leads to the product management career. Today we have with us Yogesh. Yogesh, who is a product leader for 25 with a 25 years of experience, currently lead for the product management, marketing, and UK product delivery from Optum Global Solutions, that is part of United Health Group. He brings with him a 24 years of experience leading a variety of product teams in United Health Group, Yahoo, Novell, in US as well as in India. He is an MBA from Basborn College, Wellesley, and MS degree in computer science from Boston. Uh, I'm very inspired when I read about it that he has done 12 full marathons, including a 100-kilometer ultra marathon and two editions of tour of Nilgiris and 960-kilometer of bicycle ride. That's amazing. He has two amazing daughters who are leading his life on a personal front. Not taking much of a time. Over to you, Yogesh, for the rest of the
Thank you
presentation.
very much, Vibhor. Thank you, Vibhor. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate being here today. So, folks, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I know that we have like joining this meeting presentation from all around the world today. Uh, I do feel very humbled being here and presenting this session. So some of the topics that we will cover today, we will be thinking about the role of a product manager and the responsibilities of a product manager. Um, we'll be talking about how to make an entry in the role, and then finally we closing it with how do you sustain and grow in the role of a product manager. So this is broadly what we will be covering today. So we will kick things off with the role of a product manager. So what does a product manager do at a very high level? So borrowing some words from Peter Drucker at a very high level, Peter Drucker said that the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product fits them perfectly and sells itself. Going off of what Peter Drucker said, like back in the 60s, the product management aim is not that very differentiated. The aim of product management is to understand the user and the buyer of a product so well that the product fits them perfectly and sells itself. So it still continues to be our goal of what we aim to achieve, and so that, at least in my opinion, is the role of a product manager. So this is something that I'll be doing throughout the session here. A lot of what I'm going to present is drawn from my own personal experience. But having said that, the world as I know it may only be, probably 10% of the entire universe, or maybe even smaller. So just want to make sure, like I call out that humility, like in my disclaimer here as I start the session. Um, so what are the responsibilities of a product manager? What are we typically responsible for? This is something that can be a little bit difficult to understand at times, and I'm going to borrow some words from the master, Bruce Lee. Uh, his famous words were, "Be like water." So the beauty about water is it takes the shape and form of any container that it is in. In many ways, and in many ways, product management is very similar to that. We change our shape, our form, our presence depending on the situation, depending on the ethos of the organization that we work in. So, if there is one thing that I would like everyone to take, it would be this, like be like water. Um, Kind of borrowing on or taking the lead from Bruce Lee and being like water. Product management takes a village. Product management, making a product successful, takes a village. The entire village is necessary here. So product management needs to interact throughout the product life cycle, right from the time the product is conceptualized and ideated till the time the product is actually put out there in the market. It requires a lot of support and help from multiple factions within the village. At times, the product manager owns the output, and at other times, the responsibility falls on a supporting function that makes it possible. But at the end of the day, the product manager is accountable. Uh, Product manager has the accountability to ensure that the product is successful. And in Peter Drucker's words, product manager is responsible for making sure that the product that's coming out is so perfect that it fits the user and the buyer extremely well. So, at times the product manager may need to borrow from the corporate vision strategy to drive the product roadmap. At other times, the product manager may need to influence the marketing team to ensure that the outbound messaging is perfect, or there is a press release that's going out at the right time. At other times, the product manager may need to work with finance to understand what is the fully loaded cost of resources who are contributing to the product, and at other times may need to understand what is the hurdle rate that the organization expects from the product. End of the day, take the village along with you, uh, and be like water to ensure that you take the village along with you. um, Moving further here, there are a couple of frameworks. Now, I do want to place this disclaimer here. Much, Probably like pretty much like all of you out here listening to this webinar, I am a practitioner myself. So I'm going to throw a few frameworks in front of you. I do not recommend any one of these. I am not, I'm not going to say like, hey, this framework is better than the other. Any framework is as good or as appropriate as you may need. So please take all of these frameworks with a grain of salt. This particular framework is something that I've used quite a bit. This is the Pragmatic Marketing Framework. There are 34 boxes in this framework. Each box represents a responsibility that the product manager typically performs. The boxes are laid out from left to right, from fairly strategic inbound marketing functions to fairly tactical functions on the right hand side, which are more like outbound activities in terms of enablement of sales, ensuring that you have the right channels and the channels are properly enabled, and so on. So this is one of the frameworks that we have, and I would definitely recommend that you go through this. We will also give you a link to this. In addition to this, there are a couple of other frameworks. These are just two, but then there are many frameworks that are out there. Couple of those are adaptive marketing framework that is run by a group that is based out here in India, and then there is the Israeli company Black Blot, who also have their own product marketing framework. Other than this, there is the Creative Group, and then there are like a bunch of other groups out there who also have their own product marketing framework. But if you look at this, the commonality among all of them is be like water, my friend. Kind of going back to Bruce Lee here. You need to be malleable, ductible. You need to be able to change your shape, form as the situation warrants. I think that is the thing that's common among all the frameworks that are out there. Um, Moving on a little bit further here, this is my personal favorite. I like to keep things simple. The way I look at life is, at least as a product manager from my team over here with an Optum, is we have three main areas that we work with. There is the business side of the house where there are business plans, there is revenue, there is the cost, hurdle rates, contribution margin, and so on. The second aspect of it is the user slash buyer. In the user area, you could also categorize domain or subject matter expertise that comes in. You wouldn't know what the user experience is if you didn't have an idea of domain. Now, on this call, there are quite a few people who are registered who are from other domains. I've seen that there are folks who have registered from BFSI, from fintech, and so on. So for those of you who are there, the second circle over here, the user buyer circle, that would represent your users, your domain. Be really solid with the domain that you are in. The third circle here is the tech slash delivery, which is the technology grounding. This particular session is primarily targeted towards software product management, where you are delivering software products. But having said that, product management is, like something that is not necessarily specific to software. You could be building products that are in the automobile industry. You could be building products that are in any industry for that matter. You would just need to replace this third circle with whatever it is that's appropriate for what you're manufacturing or producing, for the users and buyers in the previous circle. And on that front, like there are things like product roadmaps, use case scenarios, requirements, innovation, etc., etc. Product management draws from all these three areas, and adding a little bit of design thinking. Those of you who are a big fan of IDEO, design thinking comes out from the IDEO group. They talk about business telling you if something is economically viable. The business, your own internal business tells you like, hey, can I build this thing or not? Will I make money out of it? And if I make enough money, is it enough to sustain my organization? The second circle, the user slash buyer, tells you whether this is desirable. If I create it, will I use it? If will they use it? Will they come? Is the second circle. And the third circle is more around solution is feasible. Your engineering groups are the ones who are going to be telling you, hey, is this really possible or not? Or is this like a pipe dream? You're asking for something that is 20 years out there. So it's like trying to build natural language systems or artificial intelligence systems back in the 60s when computers were still fairly nascent, right? So you can't be too far ahead of your time. That's what the solution feasibility is all about. So this is the design thinking overlay of my simplistic view of product management. Now, we are going to get into the third area that I wanted to talk about, which is how do you enter product management? Now, I know that there are many of you who are registered for this webinar who come from a different background. You're not into product management right now. You're into engineering. I've seen a few people who have registered who are not in an engineering background, but are coming in from a business background, or are in a function that is fairly business focused. And how do you get into product management? Right. So this is what we're going to cover in this section. And in this section, we spoke about my simplistic view earlier. So from that simplistic point of view, on the business side, typically roles that enable entry into product management are product marketing and product strategy. That's an easy entry point. And then we will get into a little bit more detail there. And what motivates people to come into product management? What I've typically seen is like, hey, I've been building marketing plans forever. I've been creating strategy forever, but I never see what happens to those marketing plans and that strategy. I would like to see what actually came out of it. So this is what motivates people who are in the business side to come in and become a part of product management. The second circle on the user and buyer side, two entry points. One is user experience research, which is more so on the user experience side, and the second one is what's become quite popularly known as the agile product owner role. Those are the two easy entry points there. In terms of what motivates people there, especially on the domain side, the product management area typically pays better. There are I've seen people who aspire, at least in my experience here, that hey, this is much more of a stable career path. There seems to be more growth. And then there are also people who aspire the coolness factor on the side as well. Like, so there's the coolness factor that becomes a draw. Here are the guys who wear the ties and do something that looks pretty cool. Little bit like that Men in Black movie. In case you guys have seen it, like we make things look really cool. So but please don't get drawn by that glitter. It's very painful once you come in. Any change is painful, and this change will be more so. The third entry point here is tech/delivery. A lot of people who are in engineering or quality assurance, especially or quality engineering. This is a entry point, and the most solid entry point there typically turns to be agile product owner, and we will get into that a little bit. Um, what motivates there? People want to become a generalist. So if you're in a engineering role, you are either a Java developer or a .NET developer, or at other times you are doing quality assurance. We get too deep into one particular aspect, we become a specialist, and at some point in our career, I went through this at some point of time in my career, being an engineer myself. It's like, okay, what is there for me at the end of this? Like, where am I going? And you have that moment of truth. If you're standing at the crossroads and you say like, hey, this is probably a good career path, let me start exploring this. So this happens to quite a few people. And then there is also the draw of market facing. Hey, I have been building this thing, but I don't know what happens beyond the build, and I want to be able to connect the dots. So the product management area actually helps you connect the dots right from the time the idea comes in till the time the idea actually becomes real. And in many ways, like product management, hence, like is also sometimes called as the CEO of the product, because of the broad perspective that it brings in. So as you can see here, right, like not many people get the broad view of a product right from the time it's conceptualized till the time it becomes big. And when we talk about growth and product management in a few slides, I will talk about how many product managers invariably become founders. They become CEOs of a company, because beyond product management, right, like you realize like I don't want to be working for a company, I actually want to be working for myself. So that is something that happens, and we will come to that a little bit more in detail in a few slides. Okay, moving on over here. The next slide we are going to be talking about the role of agile product owner. I'm going to throw a huge disclaimer over here. This is by no means a representation of what happens in the industry. There are many of you right now. There are over 400 plus people here in this call. So this is something that I want to make sure, like I don't say like, hey, this is the absolute truth. This is what should be, like this is the Bible. No, this is not it. Like, so this is what I have seen from my perspective. This is definitely not a situation of one size fits all. So in my limited experience, what I have seen is the agile product owner, which is represented by the smaller circle, typically is responsible for backlog grooming, getting user stories ready, having becoming the user proxy for a Scrum team. Apologies for the typo there. The user proxy meaning someone who is the voice and the face of the user in the Scrum team. I work in a healthcare company today. Many of the folks I have in my team are folks who are either doctors or were healthcare practitioners or were registered nurses, or from different facets of the industry. So these are the people who are best suited to become the user face and voice to the Scrum team. The next responsibility is acceptance of user stories that get delivered by the engineering team in a timely manner. Um, this is something that's absolutely a must, because the engineering team seeks validation, especially in this day and age of the internet or internet time programming. It's very important that engineering team keeps getting constant feedback and constant validation for the work that they're doing. And the best way to do it is to accept the user stories that get developed by them. And of course, most importantly, track the progress and make sure your work is getting delivered on time. um, in terms of the common areas between the agile product owner and the larger product management work, there is the developing of the roadmap, release planning, user personas, as in is the aspirational user persona for whom we created this product in line with who is actually using the product today. We developed this product for a doctor, but is the product being used by the doctor, or is it being used by the front office person at the facility, right? We developed a horoscope application that people can come and check their horoscopes on. We developed this primarily for senior citizens who had a lot of time, but turns out that a lot of women come and use it. So are we advertising to the right people, right? So we need to keep ensuring that the user personas are in line with what we aspire to at the very beginning of the build or the release cycle. Then there is, of course, other things like feature definition, defect management, and positioning. I'm not going to read these things. It's there for you to see. And then, of course, the product management is individually responsible for the business case realization, the market performance, portfolio segmentation, etc. So this, in my opinion, again, is how one of the scenarios or one of the ways by which agile product owner and product management could be set up. Depending on the scenario or situation, you sometimes have product owners who are much more enabled and can play a much wider role. And then there are also other scenarios where the product management manager is the product owner, especially in startup companies where you have a 10-member engineering team that is developing the product. We have a lot of such companies which are startups. You don't have a product manager and an agile product owner. The product manager is the agile product owner. So depending on the size, the scale, and the complexity of the organization and the product being developed, the product manager and the product owner could be the same person, or it could be a team. Invariably it is a team, especially in larger organization. It's always a team. No product is built by one individual. Product management invariably comprises of a team, right? So that's how we are set up over here. The other thing also that I want to call out, especially on this slide, especially since we are using the word agile product owner, this was one of the questions that kind of came in from one of the registered registrants for this webinar. Is agile necessary to do product management? Absolutely not. We've been delivering products since several decades now, especially in the software area. Agile is a relatively new thinking and methodology and philosophy. So we have delivered great products with waterfall. We have delivered great products with rapid application development, with prototyping. There are many methodologies that are out there. Agile product owner I mean, if you are not using agile, you would still need someone who's giving the requirements. We would just need to ensure that like that person is titled properly and is part of the product management organization. That's the important call out over here. Okay, moving on to the next role. How do people break into the agile product owner role? I'm going to call out a few things that I've seen based on my experience in the last 4 or 5 years. I've seen a lot of folks moving in from QA to agile product owner. Not all quality folks are cut out to be product owners, and I'll come to that in a minute, right? What is driving QA to product owner transition? Um, the industry at large is moving towards automation. There's a lot of turmoil going on in the industry right now. Automation is driving quality to be thought about very differently. It is becoming less people intensive and becoming more program intensive. As a result, a lot of people are looking for different career paths. I've had many people coming from quality group within my organization and from other organization seeking a break in the product management function. And in some cases I've had to turn them down and tell them, like, look, this is not for you. You probably should be thinking about engineering as a career path, because there are people who have a very solid grounding in development, software development. And if you're already at a certain place in your career where you have become a manager or a leader, and probably the right thing at that point is probably to pursue the engineering leadership path. But for those people who do like sincerely and passionately want to move towards product management, things that they should be focusing on is move to get to a place where they're no longer thinking about how do I break the product. They should be thinking about how can I make a new product that really works in the marketplace. They should be ready to flesh out all the details.
and they should definitely come in with a solid business acumen. I've just called this commercial focus for now, but in reality, what it is it's big business acumen. You need to develop the business acumen. Some of the strengths that they have, most of the quality folks come in with acceptance testing. They are by nature, they do great testing. One of the important things that any product owner needs to do is accept the user stories that are developed by the engineering teams. So that's a great entry point. They come with a broad breadth, the broad breadth or the broad view of the product, which makes it easy for them to break into product management, because product management is a breadth function. We don't get into the depth of any one area of the product. And then, of course, there's the functional view that especially the manual quality assurance people come with, which makes them very desirable to move, like into the product management role. The second area is like a subject matter expert. In the banking, financial services, and insurance industry, this could be someone who is playing the role of actuarial services. In the healthcare industry, this could be someone who's a healthcare practitioner. In other industries, it could be someone who's coming from the industry, meaning they went to school or they went to college to get a certificate or a degree in the domain that they are practicing in. How do you move from there into agile product management? So the first thing, of course, like the change driver there has been the pay, because in many instances where like the pay has been pretty less, the career path given by product management is pretty solid. In case of in terms of what they need to kind of make the break into product management is, rather than think about use it, how do I think about making it, right? It's a very different way of thinking. This is where some amount of engineering focus is a good thing. Learning what happens with product development. I'm not recommending that you should go and learn Java, .NET, and learn all programming languages and become an engineer, but just know enough of technology to be dangerous, to ask all the right questions. And then, of course, don't come in with your personal bias. This happens very, very frequently. People who come from the practitioner part of the domain typically come in with like, hey, I know how people use it, let me tell you how the people use it. And one of the important tenets of product management is, no matter how important you think your opinion is, it is irrelevant. It is important what the market and your users think. So don't let your personal bias creep in. Leave the personal bias out of the room before you enter into that room of product management. And of course, very important to build the commercial focus. Those of you in the BFSI sector who are attending the seminar, you guys have it easy because you already know what the commercial focus is. I mean, you are naturally attuned to think about projects, their success, their payback rates, and internal rate of return, and so on, right? NPVs and stuff like that. In terms of what makes you dangerous, it's for this role, or makes you like a desirable person to enter this role, is of course your domain knowledge, your experience in the user persona, and of course the product knowledge. In many cases, you have used products like the one that you are going to start working on, so it just makes it easy for you to say like, hey, I've used this particular product before as a user, and I have also used all its competing products before, right? Hence, I can tell you where this product is lacking and let's make it better so that it's better than the competitors, right? And of course, like there is a third box here where we talk about others to product management, where you can be in any area. So what drives people who are in any other general field? It could be multiple reasons. In terms of what it takes to break into product management, most important, confidence is the most important thing. There is nothing to be feared other than fear itself, right? As one of the US presidents said. So important, think it, be it, and do the role very well. Sometimes it's just as simple as that to break into product management. Dive into it, and of course build your business acumen. If you are solid in business, there is no one who can question your competence, right? Become solid in your competence. Okay, moving on to the next slide here, we will talk about another area from which you can make a break into the product management. So this is for people who come from business side of the house, especially the marketing side of the house. So I know there are several of you in this call today who have actually been in the marketing space, right? There is a big difference between industry marketing, corporate marketing, right? Industry marketing or corporate marketing and product marketing. Industry marketing, typically you are looking at Marcom, you're looking at, you're typically responsible for white papers, or you're looking at primarily brand or things along those lines, right? So it tends to be a very outward focused, communication focused type of a role. Of course, there are some marketing, some areas or some companies where corporate marketing tends to be a very empowered role, where you're thinking about the strategy or the marketing strategy. There is a difference between market strategy and marketing strategy. So there are areas where, you know, like there are companies where you have the benefit of having worked in such a strategic role. But I know predominantly marketing tends to be a very tactical function. When you want to make a break into the product marketing function, which is the first circle or the smaller circle here, important thing is to start thinking about everything you learned in your college. Things like STPs, segmentation, target segment, and positioning. STPs is something that we typically don't do in corporate marketing. It's very important that you learn it. You kind of go back to the basics and own up your skills there. Understand user personas. This is again something that's taught in marketing but not very emphasized. Sales training. This is something that we do quite frequently in terms of enabling field marketing. This is not such a hard thing. This is one of the areas of your strength, because this is something that a lot of corporate marketing functions do. And then there's of course the promotional collateral. This is again on the creative side of the house, Marcom and field marketing, where I mean, I will add a word of caution there. A lot of people who come into product management invariably become demo boys and demo girls. I have heard that being a common crib. Hey, I wanted to get into product management for the strategy aspect of it, but now, you know, like all I'm doing is going to all these conferences and giving demonstrations of my product. That is an absolutely boring and career limiting move. You know, like you feel like, oh my god, you know, like what am I doing? So if you're in such a place, find a place where you can get into product marketing and at least start, you know, like get started with these areas where product management overlaps with product marketing. Again, this is my limited view of the world, guys. Is market research, competitive analysis, 4Ps: product pricing, promotion, placement, win-loss analysis, and of course measuring the efficacy of your marketing programs. Is the market accepting the product that I'm putting out there? What are they telling about it? If you are not looking at things like NPS, and if you're not looking at things like that, you're missing the boat on this. So this is where, you know, like product management and marketing need to work together. The industry sensing or the feedback loop aspect of it is really very important. And then of course, again, product management, some of the things that they do pretty much exclusively, this is again based on my own experience, is roadmap, release planning, of course, user personas, we spoke about it in the previous slide, defect management, positioning, and of life. Um, this is where we need to talk about another very important element in terms of marketing. I know I'm addressing a group that is probably predominantly based here in India, and I want to make sure that I call something out that's really very important. The location of the market and the location of the product management slash product marketing person is so very important. And sometimes it can be a little intimidating. You can feel like, hey, I feel so weak, you know, I feel like I'm at a position of weakness here. But not everything is lost. Let me get into this a little bit more. So the first box here talks about a remote market where you are sitting in a location, in a geographic location. Let's say you're sitting in Singapore, but the market is in America. Okay, so this is where you know, we need to get really very smart. This, I would say, is actually a strength, not a weakness, because this is where you are not biased. You don't let any bias come in based on one or two people you speak with. This is where it's very important to use numbers. So it's very important for you to speak with people who in turn speak with the customers. Who are those people? Sales, technical support, and then of course there is a help desk. There are a bunch of people who engage with customers. Another one is marketing, as in like the NPS metrics that we gather, which is a survey that is administered. So these are some examples of people we need to be speaking with. So speak with the people who speak with the market. Okay. or use numbers. So that would be for the remote market. In case you are in a local market, the second box here talks about local market, where the person who's doing product management or marketing is in the same location where the market is, right? So this is where you can use other strengths, which is start drinking your own champagne, especially if you're in a B2C segment. If you're working for a company like Amazon, which operates in your local market, buy products on Amazon, see how it goes, see what that experience feels like, see what it feels like to be in the shoes of the user, right? uh, the other thing that we can do in this particular market is ensure we spend as much time as possible speaking with folks who face the users. So again, don't get uh, don't get waylaid, or don't get your don't get distracted by people who are the squeaky wheel. There will be one or two customers who will make a lot of noise. If you start catering to their needs alone, your product can easily go south, right? It's very important to always have your northbound metrics, which would be very important for you to, which makes it very important for you to speak with your market, right? The third aspect, or the third box here, is where the person, the product marketeer or the product manager is sitting in a geography, let us say sitting in Bahrain, in Middle East, but the product is sold in many locations, including Bahrain, right? Or in the location where the person is situated. So a classic example of this is Adobe sells Adobe Acrobat all over the world. You could be a product manager for Adobe Acrobat sitting here in India, right? So how do you operate in such a situation? This is where it's very important for you not to get geographically biased. Just because you're sitting in India doesn't mean all your users operate, or your buyers operate just the way your Indian users and Indian buyers act. It's very important for you to understand what are the geographical nuances. Ensure that you are interacting with people who speak with the customers, right? So the biggest takeaway from this is, don't let the market geography, don't let the geography where your product is being sold distract you from the mission. The mission is to make a product that delights the users and buyers and fits them so perfectly that it sells itself. Let's never stray from that important mission that we have. How do you move from product marketing to product management? That's what we're going to address in this slide. Strengths that a product marketer has is customer and market communication. So over here, what we see is, the product, the marketing folks who are in marketing are naturally attuned to, like, be on the marcom side, which makes it easy for them to get in. But there are additional needs there. It's important not to be focused on communication alone, which is an outbound activity. You need to start getting earlier in the cycle. You need to start focusing on market research. Doesn't come very naturally to many marketeers I know. So start getting earlier in the cycle. The second area is, second area of strength is, marketeers by nature work with multiple factions. They work with creative services, they work with finance for getting their budget allocated for their marketing programs. So they're by nature people who work with multiple factions, and in many ways CEOs of their domain. But in order to get into product management, they will need to grow technical grounding, right? Many marketing folks that I know are easily shaken by technology. The moment they start hearing things like cloud, or natural language processing, or artificial intelligence, or machine learning, they tend to freeze. So it's very important to kind of unfreeze and not get, scared, or not get shaken by the technology terminologies that will get thrown around. The third area of importance, or third area of strength for marketing, is data driven. Marketeers by nature tend to be extremely data driven, very quantitative. But as an additional need, marketeers will need to become both qualitative and quantitative. They'll need to keep that balance, strike the balance between the qualitative and the quantitative. And important to develop the gut instinct, a little bit like what there's a book called Blink, which is all about making decisions, in blink of us, by the time, like I blinks once. So I don't want to kind of, get into that book detail quite a bit, but I would recommend all of you read it. So anyway, it's all about developing that gut instinct which tells you like, hey, this is going to resonate well, or no, this is not going to resonate well, right? And gut comes with experience, and experience comes with a lot of bad experiences. So don't let the bad experiences kind of stop you from getting that experience. All right. Okay. The last part of what I'm going to cover here before we move into Q&A is how do you grow, right? How do you grow in this role? So typically, when you start off, either as an agile product owner or a product marketer, you're in an individual contributor. The way this thing can play out is, there is the people, process, and organization, or people, process, and communication that kind of comes into play over here. So you can either become a people person or a process person, right? So one aspect of growth comes from people who desire to take on a broader role. So you start off with a small part of the product. As you grow, you take on a larger part of the product, and at some point, there is this role called as product line manager, where you're responsible for the entire product line. And I know many people who have gone on, like to start their company. Like I have this friend who started a company in uh, for recruitment, and he used to be the product manager for hot jobs in Yahoo. So in terms of like how you grow, that's a classical growth path where you become a product line manager, and people typically at the end of that, after you have several years of experience there, go on to start their own companies in the domain, because at that point, either you become the CEO of the company that you are in, or you go become the CEO of your own company, right? So these are people who, they're not limited by, they're not going to let anything limit them. The second aspect of growth comes from people. This is where, like you have somebody like me who started off, like my initial desire as I was going through my MBA was, to become like either Professor Cotter, or to go into the strategy space and become someone who was, a strategy leader or a management consultant. But later on, I realized I don't want to become like Dr. Cotter, but I want to become more like Dr. Phil, become more of a psychologist, a people person. Most of these days, like I think I spend more time giving embraces to people, literally, as long as it's politically correct, and telling them like, hey, it's okay, man, keep trying, and basically become a people leader or a leader of product managers. So either of those career paths are good career paths, but they are growth, and take you towards the leadership space. So this is like I'm going to keep this fairly broad, and I will take some questions and see if there are questions about the growth aspect, because I know there are several product managers who have registered for this event, and would be happy to take any questions along this path. I'm going to leave this fairly broad. And I'm also only hitting upon the responsibility progression. I'm not hitting upon the role progression, because every company has its own definition of manager, senior manager, director, senior director, vice president, and so on. So in BFSI companies, you have vice presidents, quite a few vice presidents. That's a role that gets thrown around quite a bit. Other companies, technology companies, even getting to a senior director takes an entire lifetime. So I don't want to kind of dwell upon the role progression, but I'm going to focus more on the responsibility for progression. That's what I've done on this slide. So that's the disclaimer I want to throw on this slide. And with that, my presentation is done. We are about 45 minutes into this, and Vibhor, I think we can take a few questions now. Over to you.
Thank you, Yogesh. Uh, well, well put. A presentation where we started with what kind of roles do we have in the product management career, and how a different, you know, people from the different roles can explore opportunities into the product management, and what is their entry points. And just to tell you, and that the CEO being a product manager being a CEO of a product has been my favorite term since I started doing these product management sessions, right? So I heard it somewhere 3, 4 years back. I was doing this for my first product management workshop, and there this term came in that a product manager is actually a CEO of a product, and that became my catch line. Anyway, so moving on to the Q&A, we have got quite a lot of questions, and I will take one by one, and we'll see how much we could do in next 14 minutes. First question I would like to take from Raghu. He asked, can a QA lead move to product management, and any recommendation, certificate, or courses which helps to move to a PM? So Raghu, I think somewhere Yogesh has mentioned it very clearly, and he showed a particular career path for a QA lead, that they should have a business acumen first and foremost to become a product manager. But Yogesh, your take on this? Would you suggest something to Raghu further?
Yeah, sure. For Raghu and everyone else on this call, you're going to get nothing but but the brutal truth and brutal honest point of view from me. If you are a QA lead, you have to introspect and see what is important for you. I've had so many conversations with QA leads.
Hi, Yogesh, your voice is cracking. Could you please come closer to your mic, please?
Sure, sure. Is this better now, Vibhor?
We're better.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Raghu and others, like in Raghu's place, um, you have to introspect and think about what is important for you in your QA lead role. By QA lead, I'm assuming that you have a few people reporting to you, and you're a manager of a group of people. If leading a group of people and managing people is important for you, please do not come into product management. It is an individual contributor role when you come in initially. That can be, especially in certain societies, that can be seen as a step down. So please do that introspection. If that is not important for you, if you are not impacted by like not having a bunch of people reporting to you, then I think what is important to think about is like, how do I make a break into this role? And agile product owner is a great place for you to enter, as I mentioned earlier. Two very important things. Please do get a certified Scrum product owner certificate from Scrum Alliance. It is something that people do look at with a good amount of respect. And also, depending on the domain that you want to crack into, there may be domain specific certifications that you may also want to get. And then, of course, there is the business acumen. And business acumen, no matter how much training you get, sometimes either goes well or doesn't go that very well. So I wouldn't give a whole lot of guidance there, but definitely go get a certified Scrum product owner certificate, provided you are okay with not having people report to you. If you are not okay with it, maybe you may want to consider getting a engineering, like a programming course certification. Maybe go to one of the many institutions where .NET or Java is taught, and start kind of moving in that other direction. That would be my recommendation to you. Over to you, Vibhor.
Thank you, Yogesh. The next question that we have is from actually two people. They're relevant questions, so I'm putting those together. So first question comes from Alok. He says, should a product manager require to have a knowledge of marketing? In my opinion, yes, but we'll hear it from Yogesh. And the second question comes from Ninad, who says, how do we learn the other dimension of product management? For example, a person with tech background goes in a startup. How can he learn the business, sales, marketing, research, etc., or other way around? Like somebody is coming from business, marketing, or research and would like to pursue the
It's
learn about the technology side.
excellent question. Excellent question. So what happens is there are two parts to this question, right? Or rather, there are two parts to my answer. The first part is how do you enter? In order to enter, do you need to have business acumen and other aspects of product management than the delivery aspect? No. You can easily get in as a agile product owner, playing the role of agile product owner responsibility. In many companies, this is seen as like either a associate product manager or a beginner product management role. For that, you do not need to have a solid business acumen. Of course, it helps if you know a little bit, but not necessary. But once you get into the product management role, and you have been in that associate product management role, or in a product management junior product management role, or a agile product owner role for 2 or 3 years, beyond that, in order to grow, you definitely need this additional business acumen, right? It comes in extremely handy. And to get that, my recommendation would be to go get an MBA degree. That's one place where it makes you, turns you into a generalist from a specialist, and you will get to, if nothing else, take some courses on microeconomics where you're taught about supply, demand, and the relationship between supply and demand, and so on. Because microeconomics, excuse me, is at the center of everything else, right? So get a few courses on microeconomics, and from that point on, like you can branch off to marketing and finance and other. But that would be at least my recommendation here before.
Good. So I think you have already answered another question from Cheryl, who asked, "Is the MBA is a pre-requirement to become a product manager?" I think it is not mandatory, but it is good to have. What do you say?
Yes, absolutely, Vibor. It's good to have, but once you get in order to grow, it definitely comes in very handy, very handy.
I think many people wants to know what are the professional degrees or certifications that would require to be a product manager. But so the next question is also on the similar lines where Praveen is asking, but he has a different questions. He said, why are organization not risk taking with product managers for MBA profiles?
So if I understand correctly, the question is, why are organizations not willing to take product managers with MBAs? Uh, if I am not mistaken, that probably is my understanding of the question. If I am wrong, like Praveen, please send another message to Vibor. Um, see, pro- Organizations are, in my opinion, not they're not averse to taking risk. They're I wouldn't even call it taking a risk. Product management is absolutely a necessity, essential. A company that creates product or service and or anything, like any company that's in the business of making needs a product manager. They may not title the person as product manager, but they need a product manager, right? Let me give you an example. Apple had like jobs, like as the CEO. Now, Apple was one company that would not listen to its customers, right? It, because he said like, hey, I know what the customers want. I'm going to give them what they want. So, in such a case, what is his role? He's the CEO of the company, but he's also the product manager of several product lines that are out. So, product management is an essential function. Every company needs it. The question is it is it something that is uh, is it something that is in a shape and form that we recognize and see it as? Does it go with that particular title called as product manager? Maybe not, right? Invariably, product management is such a role that no company can be without it. And if you don't have someone called as product manager, trust me, somebody is playing that role, or it is being played by a few people, either by engineering or by user experience or by somebody. Does that make sense? Vibhor?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't heard any further message from Praveen, but yeah, I think it makes more sense. Now, many questions that we're receiving on this particular topic of being a non-tech product manager succeeding in a tech-based product. So people are asking in a different formats, but how a non-tech person succeed in a in a role of a product manager where product is highly tech enabled, like if there is a lots of use of AI, ML, blockchain. I remember you talked about it
Yep,
in your
absolutely.
slide that product manager tends to freeze with the use of technologies. So how do they
Yes,
succeed?
that's a really good question. See, if you look around most of the companies, right, especially technology intensive company, the product managers who are very very successful tend to be non-technical product managers, right? Trust me, your engineering team does not need another engineering leader or an engineering person in the team. If you have a solid hardcore technology company, what that company needs is not one more engineering person, but a person who can understand their language but bring in the context of user and market. You folks who are not technical actually have an advantage in this particular space. And when you go into such an environment where you're surrounded by highly technical people, there is the saying, like, don't let the sharks smell the fear. Sharks can smell fear from miles away, they can smell blood from miles away. Don't bleed fear in front of them, right? Be very competent, understand what the technology nuances and terminologies are, right? You will be extremely successful. In fact, you have a far higher chance of succeeding than the technology oriented product managers. In fact, technology oriented product managers will fail because they are not as good as the technology engineering team that is already there, right? They can't, the engineers are going to be looking at this person for direction, and that person is not going to be able to provide direction either from a user perspective or from a technology perspective, because it's not as good as the engineers are on the technology side. So those of you who are non-technical in a highly technical environment or a highly technology oriented product, you have a higher chance of succeeding. Just don't let the engineers smell the fear. Don't let them smell the fear. Don't. Gain
I think that
confidence.
that holds true for each
Don't.
any.
Absolutely, Vibhor.
Okay,
That's my
okay,
answer.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So I think the guys, all the non-techies, just get hands on the little bit of a technology terms and their terminologies. Don't get shaky, don't get frozen, and you have a better advantage, as Yogesh says. So we in a positive time, I'll take just one more question. Uh, and that
Sure.
comes something from the HR side. Sorry, I'm not able to understand it fully, and I'm throwing it on you. See if we could make sense of it. Seema asked, are there any specific HR strategy to focus on during the product development phase, especially where there have been a M&A?
Excellent. Actually, this is an excellent question. Excellent question from Seema. So, one of the reality of our industry that we live in is consolidation. It keeps happening all the time. In fact, startup companies, they one of their popular exit strategies to merge with a larger organization, and then there are so many changes that keep happening. If there is one thing that can make or break, literally kill your product, it is the people and the culture of your company. So now, uh, product management, I think it's important for product managers to be aware of the culture of the organization and work with the culture of the organization rather than against the culture of the organization. If you're in a company that is set up to be like a services oriented organization, for example, don't try to force fit your view of what is product management in that organization. You will not be successful, right? On the same note, if you're a highly if you're entering a company where like the culture is highly product oriented, don't try to force your view of a services oriented culture. will fail that way too. So it's very important for the product manager to be aware of the culture of the organization and fit into the culture of the organization. Because when push comes to shove, your product will fail or will do very well and shine based on the culture of the organization. People will support you. They will ensure that the product does not fall at the right time. And one thing I have seen from my own personal experience is that um, organization culture makes it so that like you can enable products much more quickly, right? You get alignment from various factions that you need to work with, marketing, sales, etc., etc. If there is one thing about culture, become very, very diplomatic, become an excellent negotiator. Because if there is one thing that is like a soft skill that a product manager definitely needs to have, it is negotiation skills. Be able to negotiate, work with the culture, negotiate with the groups, like in a manner that is in line with the culture of the organization. If you don't do that, your product is bound to fail. And that is one instance where it will fail because the product manager is, bashing heads with different groups within the organization. Doesn't work well, like for anyone at the end of the day in that situation.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thanks for sparing your time with us and sharing your knowledge on the turning different role into product management. I know that you have done it in your organization itself, wherein many folks from your non-product background has become a successful product managers. And thank you guys for joining us for this session. Please do leave your feedback that helps us plan the next session, next webinar, and furthermore to do for us, NASCOM. And thank you, Yogesh. It's been a great time to work on this webinar.
Absolutely, Vipul. Pleasure is totally mine. Folks, hope this was useful for you. Please do give your feedback. It's been an absolute pleasure to present this presentation to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.